It is a thematic day to talk about nature and land use and the oceans. So, with our panelists today, we're going to take a little time not to think about the human impact on humanity, but the human impact on everything on this planet that is not us, and how nuclear energy can, in fact, help with this. So I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one, and I'm going to ask them to share with us something about how nuclear energy can help with preserving nature as we are also trying to reduce climate change. And finally, we have Jens Christensen. He's a physics student, and he's from Denmark. Tell me why nuclear for nature.
Yeah, so there are several different ways that you can get into nuclear energy. Just because it's freaking awesome, it's carbon neutral and all these things. But I think one of the things that is really overlooked is the tiny, tiny land footprint that it has. It's like one of the most important aspects of nuclear energy. So I'm from Denmark and we are really big on renewable energy. But what I think is kind of an overlooked aspect of this whole talk is that renewable energy is like this really great harmonic thing that we harvest the natural resources of this planet. But what that means essentially behind like the curtain is that we have to industrialize nature in order to harvest these things. So we have to industrialize nature, and that harms nature a lot if we actually do this. So I think we need to talk about this more. And the thing about nuclear energy is that it is free of this. You don't industrialize nature by building nuclear energy. So I had the pleasure of visiting Baraka, the new nuclear power plant here in the Emirates. It can produce more electricity than my entire country consumes in a year, which is just mind-blowing. And you can walk around it. It takes maybe 30 minutes to walk around the whole power plant. It produces more electricity than my entire country consumes. If you really like get that in your mind, then you can really see like the benefits of nuclear in terms of saving nature and also saving the climate at the same time, because these things are interconnected. We should not be destroying nature while trying to save it.
Technology is neutral. Uranium is neutral, but certain things in our culture get coded as left wing, right wing, in, out. I'm afraid that somehow even nuclear uses very little land and actually allows nature to be wild. Somehow it has been coded as industrial, and it has been coded as anti-nature and hyper-human development. I'm just wondering what we can do to shift that. And in fact, so many of the mainstream environmental organizations, chief of which, that's most famous, let's say, is Greenpeace, are still anti-nuclear. How can we reach out to them and change that fact?
Yeah, so I'm from Denmark and it's a really small country. We have like 42,000 square kilometers land area. And it's really hard for us to not start industrializing that area if we want to make energy with renewables. One of the disadvantages of nuclear is that it is actually so amazing and so energy dense. One nuclear power plant, as I've said before, can supply more than the entire electricity consumption of my entire country. So that is a disadvantage because people don't know about that. It's just somewhere out in the middle of the desert. Or if it was in Denmark, it would just be like somewhere. Nobody would even know that it's there. And so that's a disadvantage because with wind turbines, for example, everybody sees them everywhere.
Yeah.
They know what it is. They can wrap their mind around like what it is. But people don't know what a nuclear power plant is because it is so small that they don't even see it ever in their entire lifetime. So if you go to France, for example, they're like the biggest producer of nuclear energy per capita. They have like more than 70% of the entire electricity consumption coming from nuclear.
Yes.
If you ask people from France what nuclear is, they don't even know what it is because they don't see it either because it's coming from like 50 power plants or less, like in their entire country for millions of people. So that is a disadvantage for nuclear, that it is actually so amazing at sparing nature. And we need to be better at communicating this because no one knows what nuclear is. They don't see it. And we really need to like make this more, we need to talk about this more, that it is there.
Yes,
it's
it is.
supplying clean energy for millions of people. And because people don't see it, like we have to be better at communicating that it's there.
I don't know why it is. Maybe because nuclear waste lasts for a long time. People have this like mistaken idea in their mind that somehow nuclear waste is uniquely polluting compared to everything else that we generate as a part of our industrial process. And for some reason, that uniqueness stick in people's mind and they aren't able to put it in context. And one way I do want to put it in context is the scale of, we know that it's denser. Can anybody tell me, like, for a standard, like gigawatt scale nuclear power plant, how much solar panels or how much wind turbines will we need to replace that?
Thank you for that question. I think it's really important to like get the numbers on the table. So one of my favorite statistics about this thing is in Europe last year, 9 of the northern European countries decided to build 300 gigawatts of offshore wind in the Northern Sea. So I looked at the numbers and I tried to make up like, I don't feel like anybody actually investigated like how much area will this cost. So the Danish Energy Agency, they have 3.7 megawatts per square kilometer for offshore wind. If you put that through the 300 gigawatts of offshore wind, that is 86,000 square kilometers. The entire country of Denmark is 42,000 square kilometers. So it's more than twice the size of Denmark for offshore wind in the Northern Sea. Just enormous wind turbines. And I don't think anybody considered like what does this actually mean? If you wanted to supply the same amount of energy from nuclear, you could build 30 barracas. I went there a couple of days ago. I could walk around it in like 30 minutes
Yes.
or less. 30 of those stations, or twice the size of Denmark in offshore wind turbines. Like, that's insane if you actually think about it like that.
Yeah, I think
It
the
is.
problem is most people don't think about it. And why would they? I really have a lot of empathy for ordinary people because I didn't used to be in energy. I haven't been in energy all my life. I was a reporter, and before I reported on energy, to me it was very abstract. And of course, it's like you just think, okay, solar panels are good, wind turbines are good, and they are good. But when compared to the power of nuclear, most people just, I think they still don't get it. That is something that we really have to change. I also want to talk about, again, to have empathy for everyday people who think this way. When I was a little girl, the first thing I read about nuclear energy was in a book about how once you use a piece of land for nuclear power plant, you could never use it for anything else ever again. You get to generate power for 40 years, and then that land is like forbidden forever. And I remember that was so scary to me. There seems to be something uniquely contaminating about this form of power generation. Of course, now I realize it's completely wrong. You can use a nuclear power plant for above 40 years, 80 years, who knows, maybe longer, we don't know yet. And also, you can return the land completely to nature, and we've done that. But this association is so deep in people. I would like to invite our panelists to tell us how can we break that association and reintroduce nuclear as a friend of nature, and how can we do it not one at a time, but en masse?
Yes, so I just want to emphasize this point. I think it's really important. I was living in Japan for a couple of months recently, and I'm a huge nuclear lover, so I wanted to visit their nuclear plant. So I just took the train 5 hours out in nowhere, and I walked around out there, and I was thrown away by the military because they said, you cannot be here. And I think it's kind of bad for nuclear that there is this thing about it that's really like scary, or it's like they're not welcoming the
Not
people.
welcoming.
They're not really like saying, hey, we have this awesome thing right here, come and check it out. Of course the safety needs to be high, of course, but they should be doing better at like showing what
Yes.
is actually nuclear. And I think it was so great to come here to the Emirates and visiting Baraka, their new nuclear power plant. They were so like proud of what they have out there and welcoming it, and we can take pictures. It didn't have the same vibe as it has in many other places where it's just you get thrown away by the military if you just like go even near it. I think that has to change.
Do you think that the expansion of nuclear power has been limited due to political choices and decisions?
Yes, I actually believe it has. So I can only talk about my own country, Denmark, but I know that this degrowth ideology has actually been quite present in the political spectrum of our country. So what they believe is that a lot of energy is actually a bad thing, because right now energy production has a huge negative impact on our planet. They couple that with nuclear energy and say like, if we have an enormous amount of energy, that must have a negative impact on the planet. So they have actually made nuclear illegal in Denmark. Like, so yeah, I think they have been limiting nuclear energy because it is such a powerful tool to get a large amount of energy, and they unfortunately make that link between energy consumption and negative impact, whereas nuclear is like free from all of that. Nuclear energy just does not have this negative impact. Yeah.
I'm Jonas. Well, I'm with you guys. I'm from the Netherlands. I want to strongly disagree with what you said. And I think the order is in the other way around. I think that the historical reason why people have opposed nuclear, which is no longer relevant now, but it has been an association with nuclear weapons. You know, nuclear weapons as the original sin of technology, a fear of the word nuclear, and a mixing of the two. And that's what led to many bans. And I think degrowth came after the rejection of nuclear. So if you have this, powerful tool out of your toolbox, the challenge becomes much more difficult. And then you're not thinking about solutions anymore. You're thinking, oh no, but maybe our demand for energy is the sin, not our rejection of nuclear.
So I don't think we disagree that much, actually, when you think about it, because I think
can be true.
emphasizing the fear about nuclear weapons and linking that with nuclear energy, I think that was done on purpose because they wanted to not have nuclear for several reasons. And one of the major reasons they did not want it was just because it could make humanity so prosperous and grow so much with so much energy. And I think they used a lot of like tools to make nuclear energy like not be a thing. And I think they used like the fear of nuclear weapons for that reason. I have talked with many like older people from Denmark, and it is this degrowth ideology. They just don't want humanity to grow anymore. They think that we have reached the limit of growth because it has had a negative impact on the planet. But as I said before, like nuclear energy does not have these things. Like we can grow without harming the planet with nuclear.
The panel's ended. Please reach out to our panelists. We're still around to chat. And I challenge all of you to go out there and spread this message. Thank you very much.